Hello, my name is Im, and welcome back to my channel. Right then, like I said, I'm doing a double header. Episode 2 is next. I felt that episode 1 was a decent series opener. It did a good job of establishing the protagonist, Light, and also, the Shinigami Ryuk. And of course, established the Death Note itself and the rules, and, it did a good job of depicting Light's motives. That much was clear, right? I'm excited to continue. So before I get into the episode, if you're interested in full length for this episode or early access for the next episode right now, consider checking out the Patreon page. Consider checking out some of the listings there. Maybe something might catch your eye or something might interest you. And in doing so, you'll be supporting the channel. Check out the links to my social media in the description or the pinned comment. The pinned comment is right at the top. A lot of times I'll kind of edit that if I need to update any sort of important information, and it always stays at the top. It's always at the top, so make sure to go right to the top of the comment section. Consider checking out some of the other content on my channel if you enjoy this. Or if you enjoyed the first episode of this, I have another anime on the channel. It's a big one, Shingeki. It's been a big one on my channel for a few years now, so consider checking that out. There's some gaming content, it's up to you. If you enjoy this, consider checking out some of the other stuff. And consider subscribing if you enjoyed. There is a schedule for everything, and there is a schedule for Death Note. Again, check it out in the pinned comment or the description. I think that's about it. Let's get right into the episode.
ついに夢を現実のものとした彼は、その夢の完全なる成就と、それによる至福の喜びに浸っている。
よくできました。さすがは八神くん。完璧な回答ですね。おいライト、これから俺たち。
悪い、用があるんだ。
用なんてないだろ。いつも通りまっすぐ家に帰るだけじゃないのか。
何を言ってるんだ。
Yeah, he's gotta write more names.
そう、とっても大事な用事がね。
随分一生懸命だな。
時間を無駄にできないからね。ノートに名前を書ける時間は限られている。学校から帰ってきて寝るまでくらいだ。成績も今まで通りトップでいることも大切だ。何しろ世の中を悪のない理想の世界に変えるんだ。時間はいくらあっても足りない。
お兄ちゃんなんで鍵なんか閉めてんの？
さゆか。
Nichan. Does that mean brother?
気をつけろよライト。今引き出しの中のノートに触った人間には俺の姿が見える。
Oh.
そういう大切なことを今頃この死神は。
Shinigami.
どうしたのお兄ちゃん？
いや。
全部かな。
Lock it up, man.
この1週間で分かっているだけで52人。
その全てが心臓麻痺だ。全て手配中のもしくは刑務所に留置されていた犯罪者たちです。
そうなると軽く100人以上か？
It's being noticed.
しかしいずれも死刑になっても仕方のない犯罪者ばかりだ。別に構わないのでは。
バカ！大犯罪者だろうと死刑囚だろうと殺せば殺人です。
殺人と決まったわけではないでしょう。
100人以上が心臓麻痺なんて偶然があるか。殺人に決まってる。
我々は大組織による緻密な計画殺人と見ています。そんな大組織などと言ったら FBI か CIA が絡んでいるとしか思えませんな。
もう一度言ってみてもいい。こうなったらまた L に解決してもらうしかありませんか。
L というのは名前も居場所も顔すら誰も知らない。
There's that music again.
しかしどんな難事件でも必ず解決してしまう世界の迷宮入り事件の数々を解いてきたこの世界の影のトップ、最後の切り札。
L はもう動いています。
L.
L はすでにこの事件の捜査を始めています。
渡り。
渡り。
L とコンタクトを取れる唯一の
Ooh.
もっとも渡りの正体も誰も知らない。
L の声を今お聞かせします。
ICPO の皆様、
おー。
L です。そして絶対に許してはならない凶悪な殺人事件です。私に全面協力してくださることをこの会議で決議していただきたい。
New player is entering the game.
特に日本警察の協力を強く要請します。なぜ日本なのか、それは近々犯人との直接対決でお見せできると思います。
たとえ二重底だと分かったとしても、こうしてノートを手に取ることはまずできない。わかる？この電気を通さないボールペンの芯が絶縁体となり、電流をせき止めている。もし誰かが強引に中底を外せば、その瞬間薄いビニールに入ったガソリンがノートは一気に燃え上がる。完全に証拠は隠滅されるという仕掛けだ。本当の日記を隠していて見られたくなかったからという一番人間らしい理由でまあ通る。
kind of
僕は最初から危険を冒しているじゃないか。
right?
デスノートを手にした時点でね。それに比べたらこんなものは危険のうちに入らない。むしろ逆に僕を安全にするんだ。家からボヤが出るのと死刑になるの、どっちがいいかさ。
昨夜東京都西刑務所の署内で凶悪強盗犯として収容されていた黒塚山直樹受刑者
Heart attack?
突然心臓麻痺で死亡しました。
お前知らないの？
なんだよ。
キラだよ、キラ。
次は誰が殺されるのかな。
Kira?
見てみろよ、リュウク。
救世主キラ伝説。かっこいいじゃないか。これお前のことか。
ああ、殺し屋という意味のキラーから来ているらしい。それは少し気に入らない。学校のホームルームで悪い人間を殺していいかなんて議題が上がるわけがない。しかしもしそれが議題となったらみんながいいこと、
それはいけないことです
っていうに決まっている。もちろんそう答えるのが正しいし、人間は公共の場などでは表面上そうでなくてはならない。誰が書いたかもわからないインターネット上ではもうキラが蔓延している。そして自分に火のないものは
Cute little girl sending that kind of message.
火のあるものは自分に天罰が下ることに怯える。まさに計画通りにことは進んでいる。
So far.
私は全世界の警察を動かせる唯一の人間、リンドエル・テイラー。
L.
通称 L です。
ICPO 会議で言ったことを証明
I feel like L probably knows that this has something to do with
デスノートなんだよ。このノートを抑えない限り証拠なんて何も残らないんだ。捕まえるなんて絶対不可能。
Alright, bro. Getting a little cocky.
こんなのが出てくるのも計画のうちさ。
しかしお前のしていることは悪だ。
僕が悪だと？僕は正義だ。怯える弱い者を救い、誰もが理想とする新世界の神となる男だ。そしてその神に逆らう者、それこそが悪だ。あと5秒。4、3、2、1。
Is he faking it?
どうした？何とか言ってみろ。
信じられない。もしやと思って試してみたが、まさかこんなことが。キラ、お前は直接手を下さずに人を殺せるのか。もしお前がテレビに映っていたリンド・エル・テイラーを殺したのなら、それは今日この時間に死刑になる予定だった。
Okay. Decoy.
何？
だがエルという私は実在する。さあ、私を殺してみろ。
こいつ。
どうやら私は殺せないようだな。殺せない人間もいる。いいヒントをもらった。実は日本の関東地区にしか放送されていない。時間差で各地区に流す予定だったが、もうその必要もなくなった。お前は今関東に
やるな、エルのやつ。
この通り魔の罪は目立って軽い。しかもこの事件は日本でしか報道されていなかった。
これだけで十分推理できた。
お前が日本にいること。
He's rattled.
人口の集中する関東に最初に中継し、そこにお前がいたのはラッキーだった。キラ、お前がどんな手段で殺人を行っているのかとても興味がある。しかしそんなことはお前を捕まえればわかることだ。
Am I tripping, or does that kind of look like Light himself? But he's got dark hair. Or at least he looks similar to him.
受けて立とうじゃないか。
お互いに顔も名前も全てがわからない相手を見つけ出す。
Okay, alright.
見つかった方が死ぬ。やっぱり人間って面白い。
エル、キラ、必ずお前を探し出して始末する。僕が、私が正義だ。
Episode 2. Okay, so a new player has entered the game. Enter L. Yes, this is actually quite exciting. This introduction has me quite excited. I spoke of a potential opposing force. Sooner or later, here it is. It's L. And it appears that he's going to be quite the match. Light's gonna have I feel like he's gonna have a lot of problems, though Light, again, they established him as an intelligent character, an intelligent individual. He's like upper echelon, right, in terms of students, and he's like top ranked, though I still can't get that thought of him being a high schooler out of my mind. But again, I can counterpoint that by, going back to the fact that he is meant to be an outlier, right? In that sense, he is a brilliant individual. Jumping back to L, though, I love that he has this mystique about him, right? That he has this legend in place, and that he's established and he's out there for who knows how long, a couple of years, definitely, more than a couple of years, probably. He kind of reminded me of Anonymous in that sense, operating from the shadows. And, it appears that he's managed to solve every single case he's ever taken on. So that's quite the feat, right? And he's done it all by, hiding his identity, hiding his location, and hiding his appearance. No one knows anything about him, yet he's solved these massive cases from the shadows, from the darkness, hidden from it all, right? So Light's gonna have to watch his back, man, because this is a brilliant, inquisitive mind on the case now, right? And on that point, L certainly wants to know how Light does it. Like, he has a genuine interest in that. Again, in that sense, Light is a bit outmatched, on paper at least, because again, no matter how brilliant he is still a high schooler. He is still young in age, right? He is still quite young in age. That being said, L didn't look old either, and I have a point about that. I actually brought something up during the reaction. L doesn't look that much older than Light, in appearance at least. So apparently L does have a bit of arrogance about him. They said he does pick and choose the cases he's interested in, or cases that have caught his attention or he's intrigued by, and this is certainly a case he's intrigued by, right? So he's definitely taken this case. It appeared that he was already on the case long before the delegates had this meeting, or brought up his name, or the potential of bringing him in. And it was actually this middleman, Watari, right? Who himself is also a shadowy figure, an interesting figure himself. Kind of reminded me of Roshank, right? So let's keep an eye out on him. Definitely want to know more about him as well. He's kind of like, he's kind of the connection to L and the outside world, I guess, right? Now, it's quite clear that both Light and L share a lot of similarities, right? It's kind of hard to miss. And, in that sense, I get the feeling that the dualism of light and darkness is being depicted through these two individuals, right? The duality of men. So, light is usually associated with life. And then on the other end, you have death and terror associated with darkness, right? The proverbial hero, the proverbial contest between a hero and a demonic being, right? But interestingly, or maybe even ironically, it's Light who is the one bringing death and terror, right? And then on the opposite end, you've got L, who is who is operating from the darkness, but he is the one trying to solve these cases and bring these monsters in, right? So they've kind of flipped it, or at least for one of them, they've named the lead, the protagonist, Light, but he's the one that's bringing death and terror, right? Now, L's first strike was quite effective and brilliant in its execution. He unsettled Light by provoking him, right? And getting that intended reaction out of him, and in the process got him to act up, right? And act out. Though, the concept of, putting a death row inmate on a live broadcast for hundreds of thousands of people to see and then, get him killed on a hunch is a bit out there. It's a bit out there. Maybe it's a bit far-fetched as well, how come this death row inmate was so good at acting, and, how come he was down for this? This dude knows he's gonna, get executed soon, so that part of it seemed a bit far-fetched, but, it also shows that L is not scared or afraid of getting his hands dirty, right? So that's another sign of things to come, maybe, the different methods they might deploy against each other. So at this point in time, the God complex is just out of control, and he has no qualms about it, right? Light, he is so consumed by the idea that he is in the right, and that his work is saving the meek, and that, he is going to be the god of this new utopia he intends to build. Essentially, he straight up said it. He said, I'm in the right, my way is right. I'm not evil. Anyone who opposes me is evil. And the crazy thing is that he firmly believes this, that, he is 100% in the right, and this L individual is evil and coming for him. It's kind of intense and crazy to see that this young adult, Light, has pretty much gone off the deep end in like 2 episodes time, right? Because he is a high schooler at the end of the day. So it is kind of, strange to see him so consumed by all of this. Also, I did think that, initially I did think that L might actually know about the Death Note, or that he might know that the Death Note is in play here, perhaps from past experiences or run-ins or something. But it turns out he didn't know about the Death Note. That being said, he did have a hunch about Light not being able to kill, he had a hunch about Light being able to kill people without actually being in direct contact with those people, right? But L was effectively able to, extract some of the limitations of Light's killing method, right? Because he openly challenged him on that live broadcast to see some sort of limitation to this method he deploys, the Death Note, right? So, now L knows that, okay, so there is a limitation there because he challenged him, and Light couldn't do anything about it, of course, because he doesn't know L's real name. He doesn't know L's appearance, right? So he wasn't able to do anything in that moment. And of course, L is going to put that together, right? That there are certain requirements to the method. Now, I mentioned the possibility of him, L, knowing about the Death Note, but then, kind of deduce that maybe he doesn't know about the Death Note because he does want to know how Light kills people, right? He's intrigued by that. He wants to learn about the method. But is it... I say that, but then, him hiding his identity, him hiding his location and his appearance, that does kind of play into the concept that, he might know about the Death Note because, in order to use a Death Note, you need to have a name and you need to have a clear picture of the person's appearance in your mind. Right? So in that sense, it feels like he's kind of protecting himself from a potential Death Note. Okay, so is it just a coincidence that L happens to look like Light? I felt like that was quite noticeable, even during the episode. Same type of facial structure, same type of hair. He just goes by L. L happens to be the first letter of Light's name. Surely there's some connection here. I feel like this is too much to be just a coincidence. There's got to be something going on here. I guess rabbit hole theory time. Is it even possible that this is another manifestation of the human light Yagami, right? Yin and yang, light and dark. I mentioned earlier on in the episode, I don't know, man. I just feel like it's just too much of a coincidence to have them look that similar to each other, right? So much so that it's drawing my attention to their appearances being that similar. Surely that wasn't just a creative choice to make them look that similar. I don't know, man. Let's see how it plays out. I feel like there's something going on here, especially given the fact that, his name is L. And then, that's the first letter of Light's name as well. I don't know. But it's all set up nicely for a grand face-off, the hunt is on. And, I might just get an exhilarating chess match of a hunt. Each one of them making intricate, plays or moves to get one over the other, right? Or escape the other. Or elude the other. I feel like they, each one of them might even deploy some questionable tactics over each other, right? Or to outdo each other. And it appears my dude Ryuk is also quite excited by this prospect, right? Again, this is he's here for the show. So it's not as if he's picking a side here. He is excited by the prospect of L entering this game. So yeah, I'm quite excited about the introduction of L, this legendary great detective. The opposing force is in place now. So that being said, I'm firmly Team L. Light became even more unlikable by the end of this episode, and he was even more far-fetched by the end of this episode. It's just strange to see how consumed he's become by this, crusade, right? I don't know, it's just difficult to like him. So I am, Team L at this point in time, but again, like I said in the last episode, just because I don't like Light doesn't mean I don't find him interesting. I am interested to see how he kind of goes toe-to-toe with this great detective that's entered the game now. So that part of it has me really excited. So earlier on in the episode, it's interesting to see Ryuk kind of accompany Light anywhere he goes, right? Kind of like the devil over his shoulder. Though Light doesn't need any ideas from Ryuk at this point, right? None at all. And I love how Ryuk calls out to him, "Oi, Lighto." That gets a smirk out of me every time. But it is fascinating to see how committed Light is to the cause, of building this utopia and being a god of this new utopia. and how structured he keeps everything, because he doesn't want his studies to be affected by this obsession. So he does allocate specific times or a certain amount of time to these different activities, right? So in that sense, it should be remembered that he is a brilliant individual, right? And he is able to juggle these extreme ends, right? And yeah, he is an outlier, right? He is a top-ranked student, but I do feel like he is going to end up slipping at some point. The more he gets consumed by this idea, and the more he gets consumed by the Death Note, he is going to end up slipping at some point, I think. Especially now that this tricky L is on the case and on his tail. I feel like L is really going to push him hard. And, again, at this point in time, his morals are being questioned, and he's being challenged. So I think he is going to slip at some point, and everything might just go to shit at that point, right? All the structure that he has in place. Now, Ryuk did introduce a new rule about the Death Note, and it did catch Light by surprise at first, right? He said that if another human touches the Death Note, they can then see him. And I do feel like it's going to end up happening at some point, right? I mean, it just feels like it's going to happen at some point. That being said, he did have an elaborate procedure in place, or contraption in place to, make sure no one gets their hands on the Death Note, and that, just in case he does end up in trouble, the evidence kind of, goes up in flames. Let's see. I don't know if it's going to be just that easy. Going up in flames and he's off the hook. It's not going to be that easy. And yeah, going back to the initial point, I do think someone else might end up seeing Ryuk at some point. So they finally started to notice the strange murders that are going on, these past few days. It was only a matter of time, really. And yeah, at the end of the day, he did kind of set out to be noticed, right? That was one of the goals, to be noticed. Again, like I said in the last episode, he has an ego on him. Again, it kind of, transformed into a god complex at this point. But yeah, he wanted people to know that there is someone out here passing judgment on them, right? The judge, the jury, the executioner, outside of law enforcement. So yeah, in that sense, he is kind of like a extreme version of Batman, right? Though of course there are some differences in their philosophies, let's just say. So it was interesting to see the opinions of the different delegates on both sides of the argument. Some of them felt that this might not actually be that big of a problem, or it shouldn't be as big of a problem as they've made it out to be. That it could be in their best interest, actually. That, these people might have been executed anyways. So, maybe let's back off. There is someone out there kind of doing the dirty laundry for us, kind of taking out the bad apples for us. And then, of course, on the other side, you have the delegates who think that, this is just highly dangerous and unethical conduct, right? And that the victims being criminals doesn't, excuse it at all. Figures of authority or law enforcement don't tend to side with vigilantes, right? It's just not going to happen, especially ones on mass murder, killing sprees. It's law enforcement's job to, bring these people in, right? And then, put these criminals through the right channels so they can receive adequate punishment for their crimes. That being said, yes, the system's not perfect. And that applies to real life as well. And, maybe that's also part of Light's thought process that, the system just isn't good enough or it's not perfect. That being said, it's in place nonetheless, right? It is there. And, they're not going to let some trigger-happy, righteous vigilante undermine them. They're just not going to let that happen or allow that to happen. Now, that is just the law enforcement's stance. Now, on the flip side, some of the general public's stance is quite different, right? On this Kira, fan pages are popping up. Kira the Savior, as they call him, his legend is growing and spreading. That is definitely feeding Light's ego even more. This is exactly how he wanted it to play out, right? He wants people to know about him, and he's getting it, man. He's getting it through this appreciation by the general public, in secret, right? He did mention that people do tend to be PC in the open, right? But privately, they're much more open, much more, let's say, much more truthful about their feelings, right? Much more to the point, instead of kind of hiding behind, political correctness. So yeah, I feel like this feedback he's receiving is going to, feed his ego even more and drive him on even more. And, once again, that concept also applies to real life. In real life, people are usually, politically correct, or try to be politically correct in most settings, right? In most public settings, in most, public forums. But privately, it's a different case privately, right? Internet anonymity can certainly make for a lot of passive aggressive individuals, right? And it appears that that's the case in the show as well right now. Privately, he has a lot of backing at the moment. So a lot of people do have a tendency towards this malign authority, right? And as Al mentioned, this is a case of serial murder. So it is kind of crazy that so many people do back Kira to continue this crusade. And Al did take a pretty hardline approach to this. He said it's unforgivable. So, yeah, interesting stuff, man. It is interesting stuff. And I think that should do it for the episode. I think I've covered everything I needed to cover. So if you enjoyed that, consider dropping a like. Consider leaving some comments. Let me know what you guys thought. Consider subscribing. There is a schedule, and Death Note has its own specific day. And you can find out that specific day in the pinned comment or the description. The pinned comment also has links to my Patreon page and my social media. And speaking of Patreon, if you're interested in full length for this episode or early access to the next episode right now, head on over to the Patreon page. Check out some of the stuff posted there, some of the links. Maybe something will catch your eye. And in doing so, you'll be supporting the channel. Consider checking out some of the other content on the channel. Everything is on a schedule now. Consider subscribing if you enjoyed this. And yeah, I think that's about it. So thank you for checking this out. I hope to see you soon. Take it easy.